Question. In the book, The Mystical Initiations of Wisdom, Master Lanto asks us to surrender the desire to have the third eye opened or to heal others. Yet other spiritual teachings, such as A Course in Miracles and The Guides channeled by Paul Selig, emphasize that these are critical to spiritual growth. I am at the stage where I can occasionally view a person's aura. Should I stop doing this? I also practice Reiki, though with little success as yet. So, what the book that he's referring to, The Mystical Initiations of Wisdom, it's very important to pay attention to what is being said. He asks us, Master Lanto asks us to surrender the desire to have the third eye opened. There's a difference between having the third eye opened and having the desire to have it opened. And I have seen over the years, 48 years on the spiritual path, observing thousands of people, including myself, that many times as spiritual people, we have the desire to have some kind of special ability. It's very common. And one very common one is to have the third eye opened, because we think we can see auras and we can diagnose disease, or we can see into the future, or all kinds of things. So what Master Lanto is specifically talking about is overcoming the desire to have these special abilities. Because, well, there are several reasons for it, but first of all, the desire is a distraction. I've seen people who are so focused on this that it ate up their attention. So instead of looking at, what spiritual teachings can I study, what spiritual practice can I do, they just wanted this so bad. And so one aspect of this is it is distracting to you. But the other thing is that it can open you up to lower forces. As I've explained, there are 4 levels of the material world: the identity, mental, emotional, and the physical. And in especially the emotional and mental, there are beings who, some are malevolent, directly seeking to deceive people. Others are not really malevolent, but they are not at the highest level of consciousness, not at the ascended level. So there are those beings who will offer people, oh, we'll give you a certain ability, but they want something in return. For example, they want your energy. It's the old concept of you're selling your soul to the devil in order to get power in this world. And I've seen people who went into this, they had such an inordinate desire, we might say an unbalanced desire, that they got some ability, but it had very detrimental effects on their psychology in the long run, because they became very, very self-focused, very self-absorbed. And I've also seen people who thought that, oh, if you have some ability, it must mean that you're highly spiritually evolved. But it doesn't. And there are many spiritual masters who will say this. There are many of the Eastern masters, for example, they will say any kind of, this kind of stuff, ability to manifest, ability to levitate, ability to see auras and this is just party tricks. It has nothing to do with spiritual growth. Nothing. There are people who are in a very low state of consciousness who has certain abilities to produce certain phenomena that impress people who do not really have spiritual maturity and discernment. So, just to avoid going too far into this, the person is saying that he occasionally can see people's auras. Okay, but that's not what Lanto is talking about. Lanto is talking about giving up the desire. If you have an ability that happens spontaneously, fine. But there's a big difference between having something happen spontaneously that you're not really seeking for, you're not really lusting after, a sign, as Jesus said, and then desiring it and really wanting it to happen. Then there's the question about other spiritual teachings, such as A Course in Miracles and The Guides, are saying these are critical to spiritual growth. Well, there I would have to say that's just not correct. As I said, many spiritual masters that have reached a high level will say this is just party tricks. This has nothing to do with spiritual growth. It's not necessarily a sign of spiritual growth. And what I'm trying to say here is that as long as people have a desire for these abilities, they're actually at the beginning levels of the path. They have not really turned that critical turning point of realizing that there's a difference between the outer path and the inner path, and the inner path is all about resolving psychology. The outer path is where people think, oh, it'd be wonderful to have these abilities. You know, I've had many people over the years who dreamt about having some physical manifestation that would prove to everybody that the spiritual path works. But as I've also explained in several videos, that would be against the law of free will as it currently functions on Earth. So it's really what Jesus called the evil and adulterous generation that lusted after a sign. And many spiritual people are still at that level of lack of maturity. So again, if it happens spontaneously, and you're not lusting after it, there's nothing wrong with it. But to say that it's essential for spiritual growth, I just disagree with it. I don't remember, I read A Course in Miracles, I don't remember it saying this, but it has been years, so maybe I just forgot. It is not so that everybody who reaches a certain level of Christhood or spiritual maturity will be able to see auras. Because for many people it just isn't necessary. And the question is how useful it is. I have known people who spontaneously had their third eye opened. And I said it was actually very, very difficult for them to deal with. Because you see all kinds of things. I mean, you see the negative fear-based manifestations. You can see the astral plane. And one person said that just opening the door and looking under the kitchen sink was disturbing because of the creatures that are there. And so I'm just saying, I met so many spiritual people, I think, oh, this would just be so wonderful to have this ability. And personally, I look at this and say, include me out. You know, I have no desire for it. If it happened spontaneously, if there was some reason why I needed it, I just can't see what that reason would be at the present moment. So if the Ascended Masters would give me some ability, I obviously wouldn't resist whatever the Masters want. But I'm not desiring it. I'm not even thinking that it should happen. And I have to say, again, I read the Course in Miracles. I think it is a great teaching that has some great aspects to it. But I'm not the kind of person who says that a spiritual teaching is right in every little detail. So any teaching can have certain aspects of it that are not really the highest. It doesn't mean that the teaching is invalidated. But I would say that if the Course in Miracles says that healing, being able to heal others or open your third eye are critical to spiritual growth, I would say that's just not correct. I mean, that would then be an error that snuck into A Course in Miracles. But again, it doesn't mean that it invalidates the whole course. It just, there are very few spiritual teachings that are completely error-free. Probably there are none. It's not an all or nothing thing for me. The course can still be valuable. I don't know the guides. I don't know that teaching at all. But I'm just saying that it's again this spiritual growth is really about your state of mind, not your abilities. It's your inner sense of freedom, your inner feeling of being at peace with yourself, being at peace in the world. And obviously we all have a divine plan, and part of that divine plan can be to serve others. And I'm not saying there are not people that it's part of their divine plan to have their third eye opened. It very well could be, but not many. I mean, certainly not everybody. It is not, in my view at all, that you can compare the spiritual path to a spiral staircase. You are walking up one step at a time through the 144 levels of consciousness. But it is not in my view that when you reach a certain step on that spiral staircase, your third eye is open and you can see auras. That's a specific ability that has limited uses. And there are many, many spiritual people who have other things in their divine plan that they are here to do that doesn't require the third eye to be open, and it would only be a distraction to have it open. So that's why what Master Lanto was saying in the book is, you need to give up the desire. And if it happens, fine, but you don't have the desire for it, because the desire becomes a distraction.